In the far corner of the city park, two little girls stood quietly. One of them was clutching a baby wrapped tightly in a faded blue blanket. Their hair was messy, their dresses wrinkled, and their eyes carried a fear no child should ever know. The older girl looked about 6. The younger one, maybe 4. The baby couldn't have been more than a few months old. From a distance, they looked almost like they were playing house. But something was off. Ben Callahan, the 43-year-old CEO of a multi-billion-dollar real estate company, had just stepped out of his car to take a short walk before his next meeting. He wasn't used to having free time, but his assistant had canceled lunch last minute, and his driver had suggested a quick stroll through Central Park. Ben hated wasted time, but today something felt different. As he passed the playground and made his way toward the quieter end of the park, he saw them. 3 small figures, alone. At first, he thought maybe their mother was nearby. Maybe someone was just a few steps away on a bench. But when he scanned the area, no adults, no stroller, no diaper bag, nothing. Just 2 little girls and a baby. Ben's steps slowed. His instincts, sharpened by years in boardrooms and high-stakes deals, told him this wasn't right. He approached carefully, not wanting to scare them. "Hey there," he said gently, crouching down to their level. "Is everything okay?" The older girl tightened her hold on the baby. Her lip trembled, but she didn't speak. The younger girl looked down at her shoes. Ben noticed their shoes were mismatched. The older one wore sparkly sandals, too small for her feet. The younger had on one sneaker and one slipper. The baby's blanket had a small tear near the edge. "My name's Ben," he continued softly. "I'm not gonna hurt you. I want to help. Are you here with someone?" The older girl finally looked up at him. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "We don't got no one," she said. Ben's chest tightened. "No one," he repeated, his voice cracking just slightly. She shook her head. "Just us." "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Emily," she said. "That's my sister Rose. And the baby's Tommy." Ben nodded slowly. He was trying to stay calm, trying to think clearly. But a dozen questions flooded his mind. Where were their parents? How long had they been here? Were they running from someone? He looked around again. Still no sign of anyone. "Are you hungry?" he asked. Emily hesitated, then gave a small nod. Ben stood up and pulled out his phone. "Okay. I'm going to get you something to eat. There's a little cafe right outside the park. We'll go together, all right?" But Emily didn't move. "We're not supposed to go with strangers," she said. Ben crouched again. "You're right. That's very smart. But right now, I think you need someone to help you. I promise I won't let anything happen to you. We'll just get something warm to eat and figure this out together. Can we do that?" Emily looked at Rose. Rose nodded, her eyes wide and scared. Emily adjusted the baby in her arms, and slowly, they started to walk with Ben. They sat in a quiet corner of the cafe. Ben ordered grilled cheese sandwiches, soup, and warm milk for the girls. He asked for baby formula too, just in case. While they ate, he called his assistant, then a trusted contact at Child Protective Services. But he didn't mention the children yet. He needed to understand more first. "Emily," he said gently as she sipped her soup. "Can I ask you something?" She looked up. "Where's your mom and dad?" Her spoon stopped mid-air. She stared into the bowl. "Gone," she whispered. "Gone where?" She shook her head. "Don't know. Mama told me to run when the man started yelling. We waited. But she never came back." Ben swallowed hard. "How long ago was that?" Emily thought for a moment. 3 sleeps. 3 nights. They'd been alone for 3 days. "In the park?" he asked. "Mostly. We walked a little. Slept in a box one night. Then came back." Ben looked at their clothes again. Dirty, wrinkled, but not soaked. They had avoided rain. Still, 3 days without adult care, they were lucky to be alive. "And the baby?" he asked. "Tummy." Emily nodded. Mama had him before she left. He cries a lot, but I give him milk when we find some. Ben stared at her. This tiny girl had been trying to keep her siblings alive. You've been very brave, he said quietly. Emily looked away. Her eyes suddenly filled with tears. I'm not brave. I'm just scared. Ben reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a clean napkin. It's okay to be scared. Even grown-ups get scared. After the meal, Ben walked them to his car. He helped them inside, careful to buckle Tommy in with the baby carrier the cafe owner lent him. As they drove, Emily clutched Rose's hand tightly. Where are we going? She asked. My home. Just for now, Ben said gently. We'll figure things out. No one's going to take you away. He didn't know if that was true. But he knew he couldn't just leave them to the system. Not yet. Ben's penthouse was modern and sleek. Far too big for one man. It had always felt empty. But that evening, with the soft sound of children breathing, and a baby fussing in the nursery, something changed. He made a bed on the couch for Emily and Rose, and laid Tommy in a crib he had delivered within hours. His housekeeper, Mrs. Grant, had rushed over as soon as she heard. You sure about this, sir? She asked softly as she folded little pink pajamas. No, Ben replied honestly. But I couldn't walk away. Mrs. Grant smiled. You did the right thing. Too late that night, Ben stood outside the nursery door, watching Tommy sleep. He thought about the meetings he had cancelled, the investors he would have to call. But none of it mattered. These children, they needed someone. And for some reason, they had found him. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But for now they were safe. And that was enough. Ben Callahan barely slept that night. He lay awake on the couch, fully dressed, one arm behind his head, staring up at the ceiling as the faint sounds of the city filtered in through the tall windows. Every now and then, he'd glance toward the guest bedroom door, left slightly ajar, just to make sure they were still there. At 3:13 a.m., he heard the soft shuffle of tiny feet. A pause. Then a whisper. Mr. Ben. He sat up instantly. Emily stood in the hallway, holding Rose's hand. Both girls looked nervous. The baby's soft cries echoed faintly in the distance. She had a bad dream, Emily said. Rose was holding tightly to her sister's nightshirt, eyes wide and wet. She didn't say a word, just stared at Ben like she was waiting to be sent away. Ben stood and knelt down in front of them. Do you want to sleep in the big room? He asked gently. Emily nodded. Ben walked them both back toward the large master suite. He pulled back the comforter on the king-sized bed, and helped them up. He tucked them in like he had once seen a father do in a movie. He wasn't used to this. He didn't know what he was doing. But when Rose wrapped her tiny arm around Emily, and finally closed her eyes, something inside him melted. He sat in the armchair nearby and watched them until they drifted back to sleep. By 7:00 a.m., Ben was in the kitchen, still in his wrinkled dress shirt from yesterday, stirring oatmeal that he didn't actually know how to cook. The housekeeper, Mrs. Grant, had texted him that she'd be a little late. That meant he was on his own. He opened a drawer, then another. Where the hell did she keep the spoons? Morning, came a sleepy voice. Emily stood in the hallway, holding Tommy in her arms. Her hair was tangled and her eyes puffy. Good morning, Ben said, smiling awkwardly. I tried to make breakfast. She blinked. Is it supposed to be brown? He looked at the oatmeal and laughed softly. Maybe not. Want toast instead? She nodded. Ben took Tommy gently from her arms. He held the baby awkwardly, cradling him like a fragile package. Tommy looked up at him, made a small hiccuping noise, then let out a soft burp. Ben chuckled. Well, you're definitely alive. Emily giggled. It was the first time he'd heard her laugh. It felt like music. By the time Rose woke up, Mrs. Grant had arrived and taken over breakfast duty. She moved through the kitchen like a magician, cooking pancakes, pouring juice, and packing a small backpack of supplies. We're gonna need diapers, formula, wipes, and the girls need clothes, she muttered as she worked. Sir, are we keeping them another night? Ben looked up. They're not going anywhere today. Mrs. Grant raised an eyebrow. Are you sure? No, he said honestly. But I know I'm not letting them go into some shelter. Not after what they've been through. Emily, sitting at the counter, looked up when she heard that. You're not gonna send us away? She asked softly. Ben walked over and crouched beside her. Not unless you want me to. Tears welled in her eyes. She shook her head quickly. No, please. You're safe here, he said firmly. All three of you. Later that afternoon, Ben canceled 2 meetings, and called in a favor with an old friend. Mark Reynolds. A lawyer who specialized in family law and child advocacy. They met in Ben's office at home, while the girls watched cartoons in the living room. Mark was blunt. Ben, you're not a foster parent. You've never adopted. You've got no record of caregiving. No social work training. I have a functioning heart. Ben interrupted. Mark sighed. That helps. But if CPS finds out you kept 3 kids overnight without reporting it? I did report it. Ben said. I just haven't let them take the kids yet. Mark narrowed his eyes. You're not thinking of keeping them permanently, are you? Ben looked out the window, where Emily was gently brushing Rose's hair. I don't know what I'm thinking, he admitted. But I know I care what happens to them. And I know Emily's already been more of a parent to her siblings than most adults I know. Mark leaned back. Okay. Let me make some calls. That evening, something happened that shook Ben more than he expected. Emily brought him a crumpled piece of paper. It looked like it had been folded a dozen times. The edges were torn. The ink was smudged. I found this in Mama's coat, she said. Before she left, Ben unfolded it. It was a letter. "Twere to whoever finds them, if I don't make it back, please keep them together. Their names are Emily, Rose and baby Thomas. I had no one left to turn to. I just wanted them safe. Please don't let them end up in the system. M. Grayson." Ben's fingers clenched around the paper. That name, Grayson. He stood, walked into his study, opened a drawer, and found an old photo album he hadn't looked at in years. There it was. A family photo from high school. Marie Grayson. He remembered her now. Quiet, kind. One of the only people who had been nice to him back then. When he was the poor kid with worn-out sneakers. They had lost touch after graduation. Life had pulled them in opposite directions. She had remembered him, trusted him. Somehow her kids had found their way to him. Ben sank into his chair. The weight of it all hitting him like a freight train. 2. That night, while the girls slept soundly and Tommy cooed in his crib, Ben sat by the window, holding the letter. He read it again. And again. He couldn't explain it. Couldn't justify it to his board, or his friends, or even himself. But he knew. He wasn't letting these kids go, not ever. 3 days had passed since Ben Callahan found the children in the park. 3 days of sleepless nights, baby formula stains on designer shirts, and bedtime stories read from memory, because he didn't own any children's books. And somehow, in just 3 days, everything he once thought was important, no longer felt like it mattered. Ben stood in the middle of his once pristine living room. Now, there were crayon marks on the glass coffee table. A soft pink sock hung from the back of a leather chair. And on the couch, Rose had spilled applesauce, again. But instead of frustration, Ben felt something strange. A sense of life, of presence. It was like his home had been a silent museum, and now it finally had sound. 2 Mrs. Grant swept into the room holding a grocery list and a clipboard. We're out of wipes. We need more bottles. The baby has a rash. So sensitive, cream too. And Emily needs real shoes. Her toes are nearly poking out. Ben looked up from his laptop. I'll order everything online. No, she said firmly. They need to be fitted for shoes. And they need to see the world again. Not just these four walls. Ben glanced toward the children's room, where Emily was helping Rose tie ribbons in her hair. He thought about it. Maybe it was time. That afternoon, Ben did something he hadn't done in years. He took the day off. No boardroom, no calls, no emails. Just him. 3 children, and Mrs. Grant. They visited a kid's boutique downtown. Emily's eyes lit up at the sight of dresses, while Rose immediately ran toward the glittery sneakers. Tommy giggled when a sales clerk handed him a soft elephant toy. Ben stood quietly, watching them move through the store like they belonged. Like they were just any other children shopping with their family. And maybe they were. When the bill came, the cashier hesitated. "This is a lot, sir." Ben handed over his card without blinking. "They're worth it." But reality has a way of crashing in. The next morning, his lawyer, Mark, showed up looking grim. "We've got a problem," he said. Ben led him into the study, away from curious little ears. "What kind of problem?" "CPS knows," Mark said. "Someone at the hospital reported that a high-profile CEO brought in 3 unsupervised minors last week. The media caught wind too. There are whispers of you harboring abandoned kids without permission." Ben cursed under his breath. "I was protecting them." "I know that," Mark said. "But the law is cold. Facts matter more than intent." Ben clenched his fists. "What can we do?" "We file for emergency guardianship. Today. You'll need to meet with a court officer. They'll interview the children. Home inspection, background checks, everything." Ben looked up sharply. "What if I fail?" Mark hesitated. "Then they'll take the kids into custody." Ben didn't respond right away. He simply stared at the framed letter Marie had left behind. The last words of a desperate mother begging the world to keep her children together. Tuklu, the court officer, showed up the next day. She was polite but stern. Mid-40s, glasses, clipboard, and a tone that said she'd heard every excuse. Ben guided her through the apartment. She examined the fridge, the baby crib, the bath soap. She asked questions. So many questions. But what mattered most were the children. She sat with them, alone, while Ben waited in the kitchen with his heart pounding like a drum. He watched the hallway. Every sound felt like a verdict. After an hour, she returned. "They're different with you," she said. "Comfortable. Emily trusts you." Ben swallowed. "Is that enough?" "For now," she said. "But we need to find a biological relative. Someone on record. If we can't, then we move forward with your petition." Ben nodded. "And if someone does come forward?" She looked him in the eye. "Then you'll have to let them go." That night, Ben sat in the dark nursery, watching Tommy sleep. His little chest rose and fell. Perfectly calm. Emily peeked in. "You okay?" Ben smiled. "I should ask you that." Emily walked in slowly and sat beside him on the floor. "Is someone gonna take us away?" she asked, not looking at him. Ben hesitated. "I'm trying to make sure no one does." Emily nodded. Then, to his surprise, she leaned her head on his shoulder. "You're better than most dads," she whispered. "Even the ones we used to see from far away." Ben swallowed hard. "I don't know if I'm any good at this." "You stayed," she said. "That's good enough." 2 days later, Mark returned with news. "They found someone," he said. "A grandmother. Your mother's mother. Still alive, lives in Nevada." Ben's heart sank. Emily's face fell when she overheard. "Is she nice?" Rose asked. Mark hesitated. "We don't know yet." Emily took Rose's hand and pulled her into the other room. Ben followed them with his eyes. "We can't just send them off with someone they've never met." "I agree," Mark said. "But the law doesn't always agree with us." Ben stood up. "Then let's find out everything about this woman. I'm not handing them over without a fight." That night, Emily couldn't sleep. Ben sat with her in the living room. "Did you love our mama?" she asked quietly. Ben blinked, surprised. "Marie. We were friends. A long time ago. Did she love us?" Ben turned toward her. "She loved you more than anything. That's why she made sure you got away. That's why she wrote that letter." Emily looked down. "I wish I could remember her better." Ben gently held her hand. "You're not alone anymore." She looked up. "Do you promise?" He nodded. "I promise." When the apartment was quiet. But it wasn't peaceful. Ben stood at the window, arms crossed, staring out at the New York skyline. It should have felt like any other evening. But it didn't. Not since the call. Mary's mother, Helen Grayson, was coming to New York. According to the social worker, she had responded to the outreach letter and claimed she no idea. Her daughter had children. She wanted to meet them. Possibly take custody. Ben's stomach twisted every time he thought about it. The children were in the other room, laughing while Mrs. Grant helped them build a pillow fort. To them, it was just another night of warmth, food, and fun. But Ben knew the walls could come crashing down at any second. Helen arrived on a Wednesday. She stepped into Ben's penthouse wearing a long gray coat, glasses, and a neutral expression. Her voice was calm. Almost too calm. "They look healthy," she said, after her eyes landed on Emily, Rose and Tommy. Emily stood in front of her siblings protectively. "Who are you?" Helen lowered herself to Emily's level. "I'm your grandma. Your mommy was my daughter." Emily didn't move. She didn't reach for her. She didn't speak. Rose peeked from behind Emily's arm, confused. Ben knelt beside them. "It's okay. You don't have to do anything you don't want to." Helen looked up sharply. "They should know their family." Ben kept his voice steady. "Sometimes, family is more than blood." To pull over the next hour, Helen tried her best to connect. She offered Rose a peppermint. Asked Emily about her favorite color. Peeked at Tommy, who blinked at her but gave no reaction. Mrs. Grant kept a watchful eye from the kitchen. Later, when Helen and Ben spoke privately, she laid it out plainly. "I'm not here to cause trouble. But I'm all they have, legally speaking. Their mother ran from the family a long time ago. I didn't even know she had children until last week." Ben folded his hands. "Why didn't Marie ever reach out to you?" Helen's face hardened. "We had differences. She didn't approve of my life. I didn't approve of hers. But I'm not heartless. I won't let my own flesh and blood be raised by a stranger." Ben leaned forward. "They're not strangers anymore. They've been living here for 2 weeks. They trust me." Helen looked unconvinced. "You're a businessman. This is temporary kindness, they need long-term care." "I'm already working on that," he replied coldly. 2 days later. They were in court. Ben wore a navy suit. Emily clutched his hand as they walked through the metal detectors. Rose held Mrs. Grant's hand. Tommy was asleep in a carrier. Helen sat on the opposite bench. Her lawyer beside her. The judge, a woman in her 50s with tired eyes and a calm voice, looked through the papers. She read aloud Marie's letter. She then looked up at Ben. "Mr. Callahan, why do you believe you're the best guardian for these children?" Ben stood slowly. "Because I didn't choose them, they found me. Alone, scared, hungry, and I didn't turn away. I didn't hand them off to someone else. I made a promise to their sister. That I'd protect them. That I'd keep them together." He paused. "I know I'm not perfect. I don't have parenting experience. I run a company, not a daycare. But these kids, they've changed me. And I'm willing to give up everything else to make sure they never feel abandoned again." The courtroom was silent. The judge turned to Helen. "You have no prior contact with the children. Why do you now seek custody?" Helen's expression was stiff. "Because they're my blood. Because I can't undo my past with my daughter, but I can do right by her children." The judge nodded. Thank you. I'll return shortly with my decision. 20 minutes later, the courtroom reassembled. The judge re-entered and sat down. Her gaze was steady. Having reviewed the facts, the court acknowledges that Ms. Helen Grayson is a biological relative and meets baseline requirements for custody. However, Ben held his breath. This court also acknowledges that Mr. Callahan has provided continuous, stable, and nurturing care to the minors, and has made a compelling case for permanent guardianship. She turned to Emily. Emily, sweetheart, do you want to stay with Mr. Callahan? Emily stood slowly, her voice clear. I want to stay with him. He makes us feel safe. He never yells. He tells stories. He listens. The judge smiled gently. Then the court awards full temporary guardianship to Mr. Callahan, with a follow-up in 6 months to review permanent adoption proceedings. Helen didn't protest. She simply nodded and left quietly. Outside the courtroom, Emily jumped into Ben's arms. Rose hugged his leg. Mrs. Grant wiped away tears. Is it real now? Emily whispered. We don't have to go. Ben nodded. You're home, sweetheart. That night, the penthouse was filled with laughter, spaghetti sauce, spilled juice, and bedtime songs sung off key. It was chaos. It was imperfect. It was family. Weeks turned into months. Ben adjusted meetings to attend school plays. He learned how to braid Rose's hair. He built a swing set on the balcony. He read parenting books and learned how to change diapers with one hand, while sending emails with the other. He had never been busier, or happier. On the night the judge finalized the adoption papers, Emily placed a small, handmade card on Ben's pillow. It read, Tor. You didn't find us. We found you. Thank you for staying. Ben held the card to his chest, and for the first time in years, he cried. Good? If this story touched your heart even a little, then take a deep breath. And think. What would you do if you saw 2 little girls in a park, holding a baby, with no one around? Stories like these remind us that sometimes, strangers become family, and a single moment of kindness can change someone's entire life. If you felt something watching this, then do one small favor. Hit the subscribe button right now. It takes just a second, but it helps us keep telling powerful stories that matter. And now, tell us in the comments. Have you ever seen or experienced something like this in real life? A moment that made you stop and feel something real. We'd love to hear your story. Thanks for giving us your precious time. Stay kind. Stay human. And we'll see you in the next story.